All right, everybody, it is 5:35, so I'm going to go ahead and turn down the music so we can get started for this evening. All right, more James Brown to come at a later time. All right, everybody, good evening. My name is Tiffany Hong. I am the co-founder at Circle of Education and one of your facilitators for our policy innovation workshops on community safety. So I want to welcome you all back to the space on behalf of the coordinating team as well as Heather. We have a very exciting evening for you all planned out for you all. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can go ahead and get started. So here we go. So like I said, welcome back to session 3. Today is March 10th, 2021. And so as we dive in today, our team wanted to start with doing a welcome and a review of our agenda and our purpose and kind of our overarching timeline. So a really brief reminder about what we are here to do and our overall goal. Our overall goal in this project is to remove any uncertainty around the different challenges that are arising and the potential solutions to the 3 or 4 different challenge areas that your small groups are working on. And we know that these are really huge challenges to tackle and that this work won't end at the end of this 8-week period. And the plan is that the uncertainties and the additional stakeholder groups will continue to be engaged, explored, and updates will be communicated with City of Hayward leadership. So just because our work ends at the 8 weeks doesn't mean the work ends in general. And so a recap of where we left off in our last workshop a couple of weeks ago, you all completed a lot of important work and built a really strong foundation in terms of next steps. We recognize that in our last workshop, we kind of tapped into interviewing and interviewing questions and got a lot of feedback in terms of the process around the concerns of like, where are we and do we have enough in order to go into this interviewing process? And so we heard that you all, it felt a little bit rushed and that there was kind of like more support and questions that you all had. And so with that feedback, we definitely heard that loud and clear and made sure to kind of shift and adapt to our plans and our timelines in order to ensure that you all feel focused and supported moving forward. And so the team is all about listening and iteration, and even though we have constraints, we are dedicating all of our creativity and the trust that we have with all of you to move forward. And so we've adapted some of our objectives for session 3 for this evening, as you'll see, to give you some additional skill building, some support, some team time in order to set you all up for these interviews that you all will be doing. As we understand that we really want to approach the interviews with care, with empathy, recognizing that we all are each here for different reasons and different interests. And even though those could be positive, we might also have biases that we bring that we need to be aware of and traumas that people that you might be interviewing may experience. So we want to be extra careful and mindful as we go out into the world to gather this information. So today's session will be kind of craft around giving you the skills, the awareness, the procedures, all of that in order to set you all up for success and make sure that we are doing our due diligence and your engagements with the community and the people that you hope to touch base with in terms of your stakeholders. And in the last week, you also accomplished very, very much with your own teams. Each of your coaches reached out to you and you all met and reviewed your team agreements. You reviewed your challenge statement, talked through your stakeholder focus, reviewed your interview questions, discussed strategies for who you will reach out to conduct interviews, and you spent time on data sharing. So I think I see a round of applause emoji here. So I think that means you should go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, click the reactions button and give yourself a round of applause. Yes. There's so much you all are doing and balancing your like real life and work lives and schedules and all of that too. So you all definitely deserve that round of applause. And if there was more I could give you, there definitely would give you so much more for all of the time of contributing to this. So thank you, everybody. So with all that being said, where are we now? So our goals and objectives and our agenda for today is we want to provide clarity about where we're at in the process. So in a moment, I'm going to hand it over to Heather to review the project timeline and where we're at. I'm then going to lead you all through some skill development, some communication skills, some do's and some don'ts on how to approach interviewing so that you can make sure to approach it with empathy, with understanding, while also building really genuine connections with your stakeholders along the way. And then Heather is going to lead you through some additional interview preparation that you'll do with your teams and with your coaches. And then we're going to do a share out with all of the different groups. So we'll be asking one person from each group to share out like a status with the rest of our whole group so that we can continue to have kind of some alignment as we move forward. So just be thinking about this because we will be asking you to share out your group challenge statement, your main stakeholder group that you chose, and then what are some key unknowns that you identified. So I'm gonna go and hand it off to Heather for updates on our timeline. Heather, do you want me to advance slides or do you want to share?
If you can advance, that'd be perfect. I'll just let you know. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you again. We, again, wanted to just situate where we are in the process and in what stage. So this is session 3, and the homework will also be focused on understanding stakeholders, the third skill of the pause skills, and that's around interviewing. Next slide. But we wanted to show you what the plan is until the end of April. And you're going to have lots of time to work with your coach around these different areas. So this week and through until the 22nd, when you have your next potential team meeting, you might have one the week of the 15th as needed. It's based on your team. We want you to complete as many interviews as possible and document your learning. So we're going to go through that in really fine detail today. So you'll be really prepared and you can ask any questions that you have. And then your team meeting will be the week of the 22nd. It'll just be with your small group. So the goal of that meeting is to meet to review all the learning you've had in each of your individual interviews, or you might be working in teams. Each team will put together those details. You're going to start brainstorming potential solutions based on what you heard from your stakeholders. And then you're going to prioritize your solutions and pick one to focus on first. Very similar to customers and stakeholders, right? There's so many you could focus on. We chose one stakeholder. With our solutions, we're going to do some prioritization. So we have one to start with, but we have an abundance of options that'll be documented. And then the week of the 29th, you're going to have another small team meeting to start to identify assumptions that are embedded within that potential solution. You're going to prioritize those assumptions and pick the riskiest one. So your coaches are all being trained on all of this content, and they'll be able to provide it and lead the activities in your small groups. Okay, next slide. So the next big group workshop will be session number 4, which is on April the 7th. At that meeting, we're going to focus on how you might design some rapid experiments to test those assumptions and extract some learning and insights that you can provide as early recommendations. You'll be able to review that learning so far, and you'll have about a week to conduct some experiments and to work together as a team. And then you'll have an additional team meeting to, instead of that group workshop, that big session, you'll again meet with your team to talk about the learning that you had from your experiments and talk about next steps and recommendations, because your coach is going to be taking all of that learning and putting it into their report that they are preparing for this committee and for the larger council as a next step. And so you're all invited, and I'm sure we can send a calendar invite if we haven't already. We want you to hold the time on April the 26th. We now have the date for the meeting and the presentation to the City Council Budget and Finance Committee. So that's when all of your learning will really be showcased, and you can do brief presentations. So your coach will also reinforce that date and give you more details. Next slide.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, take it away.
Thank you, Heather. All right, and so in terms of our interactions on Zoom for this evening, nothing different from what we have gone over in the past. Of course, if you need support, email haywardsafe@gmail.com or use the chat box. Daniel is overseeing tech, so happy to step in for support if you need it. Make sure you stay on mute, keep your cameras on, change your name and pronouns if you would like. And then the different Zoom features that we'll be using are listed here. And Heather and I will be hopping into the breakout rooms as we move along through the session. So if we hop in, just feel free to continue the conversation, and we might provide feedback as we see needed. And then floating staff support, we have Daniel, Rosalinda, and also Terrence available for not only just support in your groups and your work and today, but also outside of our session. As you are moving forward with interviews, for instance, if you don't have a Zoom account and you need help with setting up a Zoom meeting, we can do that for you. If you want to reach out to people within the city to interview, reach out to these three individuals here, and we can set you all up, as well as provide support and advisement in other areas. So Daniel, Rosalinda, and Terrence are your other three go-to people in addition to your coaches, and they're sending a friendly wave over there. All right. So with all of that, now we are going to hop into section 1 of our workshop this evening. So we are going to be practicing some active listening skills. So I'm going to go over and transition into a different so we're going to set you up for some interviewing. So just a few reminders around what your intentions are, or like type of mindset we want you to go into as you are approaching your interviews. So the first is keep an open mind. As you are going into your interviews with your different stakeholder groups, like also take a moment to think about your different biases. Like, what is my relationship to this stakeholder group or this topic in general? And how could that influence how I interact with this group, how I frame my questions or even ask them, even the different information that I pick up on. And so as much as possible, just acknowledge your biases so that you can go into the room and into the interviews with an open mind. Make sure to approach the interviews with a lot of humility also, right? Some of the underlying values of this process is recognizing that the expert in this isn't us, isn't city staff, maybe not even yourself, but the actual community. I mean, you all are part of the community, so you're actually the experts too. But the community and the people that you are interviewing are the experts, and we are here to learn from them. And that means that there might be times that things that they say might be in a disagreement or in conflict to your own experiences, and just being able to hold that with a lot of truth and respect. Also approaching interviews with respect, being able to build really authentic relationships and connections with the community through this process. For some of you, this might be the first time you're engaging with this stakeholder group. So doing whatever you can to, respect the space and the time that they are giving you in order to pull this information from them. And then also wanting to not cause more harm. So being sensitive to potential traumas, sensitivities, challenges that the individuals that you are meeting with might have in relationship to you or the identities or the groups that you represent, because we want to make this a positive experience and not cause additional harm through the work that we are doing. So with all of that, we are going to transition into our first listening skill for today. So we are going to be reflecting on 3 different skills. And the first one is all about active listening and engaged body language. Active listening and engaged body language. So we're going to demonstrate a few skills. I and Rosalinda are going to demonstrate some skills, and we're going to role play it for you. And then we're going to ask you to reflect on what you saw. And then we're going to give you some time to practice the final skill that we demonstrate, which is on paraphrasing. Welcome back. Thank you all for sharing with your groups. So on a scale of a thumbs up, a side thumb, or a thumbs down, how did your partner do with paraphrasing you? Nice, all thumbs up and 2 thumbs up, I see from Rachel. Great job, everybody. Congratulations. Oh yeah, now you're using reactions. Cool, cool. I see you. All right, everybody. So thank you all for practicing the paraphrasing for facts and feelings. And I am sure as you're paraphrasing, you're also practicing your active listening and engaged body language. So great job. So keep those skills in mind. You have access to those slides for a while. If you want to hold on to that link and with those paraphrasing sentence starters, feel free to use them. But at this point, we are going to take a 10-minute break. And then when we come back, we are going to do some additional work on interview preparation. All right. So we'll see you back at 6:37. So welcome back from your break. I'm going to be handing it off to Heather, and she's going to be getting us ready for interviews.
Yes, hello everyone.
Take it away, Heather.
Thank you, Tiffany. Great job. That was really fun with the listening. I love that. All right, so can everyone see my screen? Stakeholders? Okay. So we talked a little bit about empathy last time. We watched that Brene Brown video about how empathy is a choice and empathy is different than sympathy. And today we're going to actually do some more practice. You practice the active listening and the paraphrasing and the great body language, but you're actually going to do an interview with someone. It's a colleague of your coaches, a City of Hayward staff member. And so you're going to actually have 15 minutes to interview someone tonight in your small groups, and you're going to practice a lot of these different elements. Your coach will ask the questions, but all of you are going to practice taking notes and extracting insights and talking through them as a team and getting used to that process, because this is the process we're going to use when you're talking to all of your stakeholders that you're going to start reaching out to. So I just wanted to touch back into this slide that we talked about last session. When you're doing the interview, you want to be thinking about not only your body language and paraphrasing all those great skills, but you're really noticing emotion. And that's where I love that piece about, like, gosh, that must have been really difficult. And you must have felt blank and all those different things that Tiffany talked about. And you want to be thinking about, what did I learn from talking to that individual? What took me by surprise? Like, what was something unexpected that they said, or something that really was different? Maybe it didn't align with what you thought they might say. When you talk to more than one individual, sometimes you'll start to see themes. You'll definitely talk about themes as a group, but you yourself, in doing some of these interviews, you start to see stuff that comes up again and again. So just be mindful about that. And then what additional questions came up for you? You'll probably be very savvy and you'll insert some of those into your script, but write down some of those extra questions that you ask, because when you share them with your team, that's really great learning that they can integrate into future scripts for future conversations. So as much as we can listen, we also have to know, how do we really pull out those amazing golden nuggets of fantastic stories and information. So that's what we'll practice. So what I want you all to do, if you just have a sheet of paper with you, or if you have like an open notes or an email, whatever you use, you can take notes on your phone if you're quick with that. Your coach will be asking the questions of the person that you're interviewing, but I want each of you to practice taking notes, just jotting down what people are saying. And how I like to write notes for interviews is almost like a transcript, really every key thought or idea that they share, noting it down. So you're not listening to 4 or 5 sentences and then you're like, summary, here's one word or a couple words. Like in the note taking, you want to be pretty thorough. So I think of it like more of a transcript. And then what you're going to do is each of you will take your notes, and after you complete the interview and say thanks so much and say goodbye to your lovely colleagues that you're talking to, you are then going to go back into the Miro board, and your coach can help you navigate Miro, you're going to find, and I'll show you what that looks like. You're going to have a place where you're going to document your ahas, and then you're going to review those stickies and group them together like we did before. And it's to give you practice. These are folks that actually have great information for you that tie to your challenges and your stakeholder groups, but they're a little bit different than the other stakeholder interviews we're going to do. So in Miro, and I'll put the link in the chat, or if Daniel or I think Nick or Terrence, I can't remember who's doing the technology, or Rosalinda, anyone has that in the agenda could put that into the chat. That's the link that we'll use to go to Miro, but you're just gonna navigate the frames and you're looking for your group, and that's where you're going to lead to put those ahas onto sticky notes. So we have 45 minutes for this section. We really heard you and wanted to give you more space and time to do the work so it would feel less rushed and less hurried. And I think all of us on the team are enjoying that as well. So you're going to interview your contact. Each of you will take your notes. Each of you will pull out 3 to 4 key insights once the interview is done, and then you'll review those as a team and look at some of those key themes and digest. And then we'll have time after that for you to all come back together in this large room, and we'll talk about any ahas and learning or questions and things. So before I'll stop sharing, before we go into your rooms to do that, are there any questions from any of you before we send you into your team breakout rooms to interview your employee from the city of Hayward? Let's go ahead and raise your hand or unmute. Okay, I don't see one. Awesome. So Mary, I think you have the breakout rooms already set up.
It's gonna be Daniel.
Oh, Daniel's doing, see, I don't know who's doing tech. Sorry, guys. Okay, Daniel, thank you. You're going to be joined with your coach, and then you'll get kicked off. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks so much for doing that. We wanted to take some time just to process a bit and share, take about 10 minutes. And I would love to hear from any of you that want to use the reaction and raise your hand. You know, what was that like for you? Was there key learning that you want to share, or questions from the experience? Just have a little bit of time to process what that was like. So anyone want to share? You can either unmute or raise your hand.
We're just joining. We didn't get the full question.
Oh, thanks for that clarification, Wade. So my question was just taking time to debrief what that experience was like, you know, listening to, doing the interview, listening to their words, extracting that information. How did that feel? What really stood out to you? Any ahas you want to share, any takeaways, or what the process was like? Either raise your hand or just
I have
unmute.
one.
Go ahead.
This is like more of a process observation, but our coach Mary did a really good job of like contextualizing her questions. So especially considering that we all went through that training before, so she was able to kind of like pull on that, which I know we won't be able to do in real life, but she was able to say like kind of why she was asking a question in a way that I think made it more informative for the person responding, so she could kind of give some like background a little bit without talking a ton. I thought she did a good job of that.
Yeah, so she provided context to the person that she was going to interview to get them more situated and what their responses would be around. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think
Is
if
it-
you.
Archie.
Oh,
The Archie's hand up, Heather.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Artie.
Yeah, so actually one thing that struck me is some of the ways it's different from other types of even formal conversations I have. So I do a lot of like interviews for sort of journalistic purposes, and then also a lot of interviews with people who want to partner with the company I work for. And they're much more, they're kind of interactive, or you can, it's a little bit different because you're listening for something different than really just trying to get the interviewee to give you a narrative that's very personal. And so that's just something that struck me as different, because the goal here is actually quite different than trying to just get factual information, I think. And so there's a big part of it is just kind of creating the comfort to share more of the personal experience.
Absolutely. That's a great observation. Yeah, you're really listening to try to get a sense of someone's perspective and story and the emotion around that. Yeah, it's intended to be more relational than transactional if it's done correctly, right? Yeah, great observation. Thank you. Anybody else?
It's kind of like the canary test, canary in the coal mine. As you know, you might have found a great stakeholder if they're comfortable with just talking and talking and talking about the issue, and they require minimal prompting, and so that they can even tend to lead themselves because it demonstrates true interest and investment in what's going on, and so that they're probably a good person to be talking to about the matter.
Yeah, you will really see a variation, right? Some folks will be very comfortable, very talkative. Others, you need to build more trust and provide opportunity for them to speak. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Eric?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think this would be so much easier if we could do it in person. Zoom is just going to be, I think that's just going to be really odd for me, even though I've used it a lot lately. You know, I just hope people will be able to get that comfort level from, you know, my head on a screen. And I just don't know. I don't know if I can do that. I feel like worried that I won't be able to build that kind of trust and empathy through a TV screen or a computer screen that I would if I was sitting across the table from somebody. That's just a concern that I personally have.
No, I hear you absolutely. Pre-COVID, what we would tell teams is face-to-face is ideal, right? Because the body language and the connection, the energy, like there's an exchange, right? And because we can't do that, we always would say, if you can't be face-to-face, video is next, phone would be the next preference down. So it is a challenge, but it's interesting. I just finished a 5-week process all around empathy, and people were really surprised that after time and as the interviewer got more comfortable and as they kind of worked on their repertoire, it started opening up how they were entering the space, and it opened up how people also entered that space and connected with them. So part of it's comfort and using it not for meetings, but you're using it for connection, you know, authentic relationship building. So reach out if you need support with that, but I think you might get more comfortable. I hope, yeah. Any other questions or comments or ahas? Okay, well, the Miro boards look awesome. It was really fun to see all of your notes popping up. So what this will look like moving forward is you're gonna have time tonight to strategize as a team about who you're gonna talk to, who's gonna talk to whom, how are you gonna reach out to them, all those pieces. And so either in pairs or individually, you're gonna discuss that as a team. When you do your interviews, you're going to be taking all those notes, you know, handwritten or typed, whatever works for you to be least distracting. And then you're going to enter those into the Google Doc, and your coach will review how to access all of that. And then you're going to be extracting, just like you did tonight. You're going to pull out those juicy ahas, those really important learning moments, and you're going to capture those in the Miro. And then you're going to see what themes emerge, start to move them into clumps and arrange them into areas, and you'll see stuff that pops up again and again and again. And that's going to help inform your team meeting when you start to talk about solutions. You're really going to see how the challenge is really revealed through the interview work, and then take on next steps. So we are going to take a break. And then when we come back, we are going to go back into your small groups to talk about strategy, to review your questions. And I'll do a little bit of reminder for you about what those should look like. And then you'll have time to strategize. We'll have about 20 minutes to get your plan together, like the concrete steps that are coming up next. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Come back at 7:39, and then we'll jump into getting even more prepared. Thanks, everyone.
All right, I'm gonna hand it back over to Heather.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for that music, Tiffany. That's great. Brings energy to us. So what I mentioned before the break, we're going to just refresh a tiny bit about what to look for in your questions. I'm going to share my screen. All right, here we go. So some of you already had a chance in your team meetings to look at your questions. If you haven't already, just maybe time box about 5 out of the 20 minutes that you have to double check those. If you've already feel really good about your questions, you can keep moving through the strategy process, but we just want to make sure, again, our questions are shaped by our areas of uncertainty, our key unknowns that we identified last time. We want to make them open-ended and really get to why. And I had mentioned last time at the last session, I want to reinforce that no one can really perfectly predict their future behavior or action or plans. So we want to ask people questions that are focused on the past. The last time you encountered X, Y, or Z, what did you do? What was that like? What worked and what didn't? What do you wish could have been better for you? It's okay to focus on a retrospective so that they can tell you a story of the action they actually took versus how would you do this? Because then people are just imagining. If you're asking them like, what do you wish you had? That's a little bit different because it's based on the experience that they actually witnessed and experienced themselves. So the goal and what you're going to focus on in your strategy is that each of you will interview a minimum of 3 stakeholders. That's the goal. And as a team, you're going to talk about how you're going to do that. I just want to reinforce that the interviews are so important. You'll have 2 full weeks to complete as many as you can. And the work that we do moving forward, the work that we do when we start brainstorming potential solutions, we start integrating all that we learn, you can imagine it's better to talk to 20 people than it is to talk to 6, right? And we know that stuff can happen. So your coaches are here to help you. They'll help you contact, they have spreadsheets that Rosalinda can also help you with that will have volunteers that have already offered their support for this project that are ready and waiting to be interviewed, so they can connect you with those resources. And Rosalinda is also the contact for gift cards. We want to make sure that folks that we do engage with, that they can be rewarded or appreciated in some way for their time and energy and wisdom that they're sharing. So that's also included. So in your 20 minutes that you're going to be with your team, talk about your script and questions as you need to. And I think the coaches talked about just revisiting some of the disclaimer language to make sure everyone feels comfortable with that. You're going to talk about your outreach strategy and then have a little chat if you have time about what you want to do over the next 2 weeks. You're going to have your next team meeting the week of the 22nd, but there is a week in between that you should talk about how you want to check in on your progress. So I will stop sharing. Any questions on that before Mary sends us back to our team rooms? Any questions before we go back to do some group work and strategy? All right, we'll send you to your rooms and Tiffany and I will hop in and check on you.
George, was that your frustration? I got pulled away.
I'm sorry, George. I was saying to Terrence, you know, it's so hard to do these in Zoom rooms because you see I like hop in, then I have to hop to another. If we're in the room together, like I can read the room, I can walk over to your table, I can see what's going on. Ugh, it's hard. It's frustrating as a facilitator, but thanks for hanging with us. I gave you more time because your conversations were so generative and you were getting closer and closer to having your strategy a bit more formulated. You're all at different stages, which was also a little tricky on Zoom. The next step that we were going to focus on was we were going to do group report outs. And we were going to look at our Miro board and our learning journey map. But I'm wondering if I can read the temperature of the room from our coaches. If we could perhaps skip that part for this go around And then we can revisit that another time. Tommy is really excited about that. So we'll skip the group share out, and what I'm going to jump to is just reminding you again about the next steps, answer any questions, and then anytime we have left, I would love to send you back to your groups so you can finish your conversations. Does that sound okay to everybody? Thumbs up, nods. Okay, thanks. Okay, let me just share my screen real quick. I just want to make sure we're clear on some of the timelines. Thanks for being flexible. Okay, so that's about the share out. We're not going to worry about that. Oh, I guess I didn't have any extras about that. No, I had the timeline. Oh, the timeline's on the other slides. I'm so sorry.
Do you want that, Heather?
Yeah, could you put those up for me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Forgot that we were using like 3 different decks today. Okay, perfect. So,
Sorry. Timeline.
yeah, perfect. So we talked about the interviews, completing as many as you can. The time that you'll check in the week of the 15th is what you and the team can hash out and have that time to talk about now and to communicate via email. But you definitely should have some sort of touch base, and you and your coach can figure that out. And then the week of the 22nd, during that week, you're going to start reviewing all the learning that you've gathered from those interviews, look through those ahas, get those organized in Miro. You should be adding them all along. Don't wait until your team meeting to do that. Like, that's a link that you can click on as you do your interviews so that you're always adding and starting to organize those. Don't wait. I just want to make that clear. And then at that meeting, you'll start to brainstorm potential solutions based on what you've learned. You'll prioritize, you'll choose one, and then your next week at your team meeting, you'll start to talk about assumptions. So I'm not going to go into too much more detail or even the next piece. I think that gives you the sense of the next couple of weeks and how it's important to get these interviews done. So thanks, Tiffany. We can stop sharing now. Thanks so much. So before we jump back to our rooms, are there any questions that would be appropriate for the whole group, or anything related to the overall timeline that we should talk about? Go ahead and raise your hand if you have anything that's overarching. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So we want you to use the rest of this time to work with your team. So we're going to say our goodbyes. We're obviously going to hang out, and I'll jump into rooms, and so will Tiffany and some of the others. We appreciate you so much, and we love your feedback. Your feedback is what helped us construct this session today and taking more time and giving you more space to really feel prepared. So thank you so much. And we're going to keep in touch with your coaches and making sure that everything's flowing smoothly before our next large group meeting. So thanks so much, and we'll send you back to your breakout rooms, and we'll go visit you there.